Welcome back to the Snark Side, babes. If you are new here, hi, you are in the exact right place today.
The absolute right place. Welcome to the chaos, the glamour, and honestly, the absolute horror of it all.
Right. And, okay, we need to address the elephant in the room immediately, because if you're watching the video feed, yes, we're absolutely dressed like Victorian-era royalty right now.
Fully corseted, like I am draped in heavy forest green velvet that probably cost more than my first car.
And no, babes, we are not going to apologize for it. This is full method acting. We are manifesting money, power, and, like, a little bit of chaos today.
It is giving regal delusion, it is giving shadow monarch plotting, and I am entirely here for it. Is it unhinged behavior for a Thursday? 100%.
Oh, completely unhinged. I feel like if I gesture too wildly, I'm going to knock over a chalice. I feel regal, I feel slightly delusional, and I feel like demanding a moat.
Which is exactly the energy we need. But before we let the power go completely to our heads, we need to take a genuine, like, lived-in moment to recognize the real power behind the throne here.
Oh, absolutely. A very important shout out to our incredible producer, Allison.
Yes, Allison is the real MVP.
Snark Squad, we are almost at episode 1,000 of this show. 1,000 times we have sat in these chairs, and Allison has been rocking with us from day one.
Day one, dealing with the unedited audio of us screaming about television, editing out the times we literally choke on our water laughing, keeping this entire production together.
And never once judging our deeply questionable life choices. Or, well, never doing to our faces.
Exactly. Cheers to you, Allison. And yes, babes, we have the Casa Azul tequila lined up right here on the table.
We are taking shots in your honor, Allison. Because you deserve it, and because, honestly, we are going to need the liquid courage for what we are discussing today.
Bottoms up, royalty. May our reign be long.
Oh wow, okay. That went straight to my head.
The burn. It means it is working. Give me a second, my Victorian lace collar just got significantly tighter.
Right, there's nothing quite like premium tequila hitting a corseted ribcage.
Truly an experience.
Okay, before we get into the absolute nightmare of Gilead social season, brace yourself. I have a controversial question for you.
Oh, God. I am bracing. I can feel the tension already. Hit me.
What is one hill you will absolutely die on? Like that one opinion that is so unpopular, you could almost get canceled by the Snark Squad for saying it out loud.
Oh, we are choosing violence early today.
Okay.
I need a second to think.
I will go first to take the heat. I will die on the hill that the villain edit on reality TV is almost always just a misunderstood, highly empathetic person who is driven to temporary insanity by the aggressively boring cast members. I said what I said.
Wait, what? No. I completely fundamentally disagree with the premise of that argument.
But they are the actual victims. They carry the show on their backs.
That is a wild, incredibly generous take. No, babe, some people are just toxic. The cameras just capture the toxicity in high definition.
But the producers edit it to look so much worse.
You cannot blame a producer or an editor when a cast member actively orchestrates a rumor to ruin someone's life or, like, throws a glass across a restaurant.
They're just reacting.
The edit only highlights the sociopathy that is already there. I will die on the hill that the bad edit defense is the ultimate narcissist's cop-out.
You are so wrong, and my heart breaks for the misunderstood, chaotic reality stars of the world. They're just feeling their feelings out loud.
We will have to agree to disagree, because your empathy is totally blinding your analytical skills today.
Fine, fine. We have an entire totalitarian regime to dismantle today anyway, and honestly, maybe it is the Casa Azul talking, but Snark Squad, we just want to say it again, we love you.
We truly do, even when you are completely wrong about the psychological makeup of reality TV villains. The Snark Squad is the only reason we get to sit here in velvet and argue.
And to fully set the scene for the level of indulgence and sensory overload we are operating on today, we have to talk about what we just ate before hitting record.
Oh, yes, because we did not just have a quick snack. We sat down and had oysters Rockefeller.
Pure, rich, incredibly decadent, slightly villainous energy, which perfectly matches the corset.
It really does.
I have to admit, I was so hesitant. I am usually a purist when it comes to seafood. Raw oyster, squeeze a lemon, keep it clean.
Right, keep it simple.
Exactly. When you put baked spinach, copious amounts of butter, pernod, and breadcrumbs on top of a perfectly good oyster, I was like, Are we ruining a beautiful thing by covering it up with all this rich performance?
Which is a very fitting metaphor for the episode we are about to discuss, actually. The performance covering the rot.
Oh my God, exactly. But the execution of that dish, wow.
The texture of the crispy breadcrumbs against the briny, warm oyster, insane.
The richness of the butter melting into the spinach. I was actively laughing at myself for hesitating while simultaneously reaching for my fourth shell.
It was an experience, and honestly, it put us in the exact right headspace for today's analysis. We are feeling bold, slightly tipsy, traumatic, and just ready to tear into things.
We are so ready. So today's mission, we are breaking down the grotesque, pastel-colored nightmare that is the Gilead ball from the latest installment of the Testaments.
Yes, comparing the visual adaptation to the original text and basically just spiraling over every single detail.
And we have to start by setting the stage with Agnes, because the emotional weight of this opening sequence left me completely gutted.
We have to start there. The psychological weight anchors everything else that happens at this so-called ball.
We start with Agnes waking up in her room, drowning in this horrific, suffocating, completely formless shame.
Yeah, the morning after her dental appointment with Dr. Grove, who, let us remind everyone, is Becca's dad.
Right. Agnes was sedated for a routine procedure, but she woke up in that chair with her undershirt untied, feeling this deep, visceral sense of violation.
Her mind blocked it out due to the anesthesia, but her nervous system is screaming that she was preyed upon.
She doesn't know exactly what he did to her, but she feels fundamentally dirty. I was reacting with such intense emotional disgust watching this.
Because it is terrifying. The narrative visualizes the invisible weight of somatic trauma so brilliantly.
And what makes it so much worse is the language deficit. In Gilead, girls are not taught about bodily autonomy.
Exactly. They do not know the clinical terms for their own anatomy, let alone the vocabulary to articulate sexual assault.
So she just internalizes it as her own inherent sinfulness.
Yeah.
She has no words, so she cannot even process it internally. Ignorance is not bliss for Agnes. It is a massive crevasse of trauma.
That is the core mechanism of Gilead's control. If you do not give people the words to describe their oppression, they cannot organize a resistance.
It is the ultimate psychological prison. And then the show brilliantly, jarringly pivots. Paula, her stepmom, busts into the room giving the most utterly delusional pep talk I have ever witnessed on screen.
Paula. We need to do a full psychological workup on Paula.
She is bustling around, manic energy, completely ignoring Agnes's obvious dissociation. Paula's reminiscing about wearing strapless dresses and going to proms.
Completely glossing over the fact that Agnes has no concept of what a strapless dress even is. She has worn a uniform her entire life.
Right. And Paula is prepping her on how to politely decline a cup of spiked punch from a boy, like she is a normal teenager going to a 1998 suburban high school dance.
It is giving pageant mom training a toddler, but the pageant is being held in the middle of an active war zone.
Meanwhile, she is preparing her teenage stepdaughter to be literally optioned off to geriatric pedophilic commanders.
The cognitive dissonance is deafening. Paula is actively trying to map the innocent rites of passage from the old world onto the horrific human trafficking of Gilead.
It is so gross. Because for a microsecond, Paula almost looks sad. She says something about different times, and you see this flicker where she realizes Agnes doesn't share those memories.
She realizes the world she grew up in is dead, and she helped kill it.
But instead of sitting in that guilt, she just pushes forward into the delusion. She doubles down. Don't accept with too much grace. You're a godly girl.
It is a survival mechanism for Paula, too. If she stops to acknowledge the reality of what she's dressing Agnes up for, her entire worldview collapses.
So she focuses on the minutia, the hemline, the performance of normalcy.
Which brings us to the most jarring visual of the entire preparation sequence. The makeup.
The utter blinding hypocrisy of the makeup. I was yelling at my screen.
It is the paradox of the patriarchy in full, undeniable effect. Let's break down the logic of Gilead for a second.
Please do.
The entire foundational doctrine of this society is that women must be completely covered up. Heavy fabrics, wings that restrict vision. The philosophy is that the female body is dangerous and must be hidden to prevent tempting men.
Exactly. It is always the woman's burden to manage the male gaze.
But the very second it benefits the system, the second these high-ranking commanders need to parade girls around to secure dynastic marriages, the rules evaporate.
Suddenly, the girls are putting on this clean, organic makeup.
Right.
They're given blush, lip tint.
Purity is aggressively demanded until performance is required. They aren't allowed to read a book, but they are handed a makeup brush and instructed to paint their faces to seduce men 3 times their age.
The hypocrisy is the point. The rules only exist to subjugate the women, not to restrict the men. The men want to look at pretty girls at a ball, so God's law is conveniently suspended.
And the glamour of the event itself just thinly veils the absolute churning horror underneath. When we get to the ballroom, the choreography of the dance,
I was mesmerized
and the emotional horror is compounded by the father's active involvement.
yes, the moment the choreography transitions into the father-daughter dance, I felt physically unwell. These men are actively participating in pimping their daughters out to their peers.
It is the ultimate betrayal of the parental bond.
And my heart absolutely stopped when Agnes is dancing with Commander Mackenzie, and she looks over the shoulders of the crowd and sees Dr. Grove dancing with Becca.
The man who assaulted Agnes hours earlier in a medical chair is twirling his own daughter on a dance floor.
The unspoken implication just hangs in the air. If he did that to a sedated patient, what is he doing behind closed doors to his own child?
Exactly. Agnes just freezes. You can see the panic rising in her throat. She shudders to even touch her own father in that moment.
Because the proximity to male power and violation is suddenly so palpable, every man in that room becomes a threat.
And then, to add insult to injury, they bring in the younger guards for the warm-up dances.
Yeah.
And the small talk. It broke my brain.
It was so awkward and sad.
It reveals the total fractured reality of Gilead's generational divide. A young guard tries to flirt with Agnes, and he casually mentions the movie Jaws.
And Agnes has never seen a movie in her entire life. Moving pictures are essentially contraband for women.
She only knows the word Jaws because she vaguely remembers her real dad, Luke, telling her a story about the beach.
Right, she thinks Commander Mackenzie took her, but we know it was Luke. But she can't even participate in the conversation, she just stares at him.
And then you have Becca dancing with another young guard, desperately trying to make conversation about playing the hammered dulcimer.
An instrument from the 1800s. Two completely different eras colliding in real time.
The boys are raised with at least some connection to modern culture and media. They get to watch old movies. But the girls are raised like 18th century porcelain dolls.
They don't even have a shared reality to build a basic conversation on. How are they supposed to marry these men when they don't even exist in the same century?
They aren't supposed to relate to them, babes. They are supposed to submit to them. But the absolute most terrifying part of this entire night was the Zoom interview from hell.
Oh my God, the Microsoft Teams meeting of doom. I have chills just thinking about it.
The banality of evil has never been captured so perfectly. Aunt Gabbana pulls Agnes off the brightly lit ballroom floor and takes her into this dark, oppressive little side room.
And there is just a glowing computer screen. And on that screen is a grid of high-ranking, powerful commanders staring back at her, like Hollywood squares for systemic human trafficking.
It's the clinical, bureaucratic nature of it that makes it so chilling. Commander Judd leans into his webcam and asks Agnes, "How will you exemplify your wifely duties?"
And Agnes just breaks. The spotlight, the intense pressure, and the suppressed trauma from the dentist chair that she's been pushing down all day, it all comes crashing down.
She has a full-blown panic attack, hyperventilating right there on camera.
And here's where it gets deeply manipulative. Judd sees her breaking down, and he turns off his camera. He mutes the feed to the other commanders.
Yep.
Corporate damage control.
And he speaks to her incredibly gently through the speakers. He offers her a tissue, tells her a folksy little story, coaches her to take deep breaths, and then turns the camera back on.
Now, I know what you're going to say about this.
I watched that scene and I was so emotional. A part of me, the part that always desperately wants to see the good in people, was like, wait, does Judd actually have a heart?
No.
Is he secretly working with Mayday? Because his voice was so soft, it was a genuinely tender moment.
No. I am pushing back on this so hard. Do not fall for the edit. Judd is not a good guy. He is a predator protecting his investment. He is a master groomer.
You don't think there was an ounce of genuine pity?
Not a single ounce. Think about his motivation. He knows that if a girl has a psychological breakdown on a live call with the top brass, her market value plummets instantly.
Oh, true.
He doesn't care about her anxiety. He cares about the aesthetic of presenting a compliant, perfect future wife to his colleagues. He's making sure they don't think he's presenting broken goods. You are so right, and I hate it. It is so deeply sinister how easily that fake kindness can disarm you, especially when you are starved for comfort like Agnes is.
It is manipulation 101. He uses empathy as a tool of control.
But speaking of breaking down, the entire infrastructure of this perfectly choreographed ball starts to crumble behind the scenes. Let's talk about the bathroom breakdowns and the worst spies in history.
Daisy. We need to talk about Daisy, because she is a walking liability.
She really truly is. A creepy old commander walks past her in the hallway, touches her face, and says something inappropriate.
And Daisy, who is supposed to be undercover in the most dangerous regime on Earth, just visibly recoils and yells, "Don't touch me,"
Out loud, echoing down the hallway in the middle of a Gilead event.
as one Snark squad member perfectly put it in the comments this week. The Toronto slipped out. How is she still alive?
She is the worst undercover agent I have ever seen. If Garth hadn't been standing right there in the shadows to smooth it over, she would be on a cattle car to the colonies.
She expects to act like a modern Canadian teenager in the epicenter of Gilead and face zero consequences.
She is constantly pushing her luck. But as much as I want to shake her, we forgive her because her heart is fiercely in the right place, especially with Becca. Because Becca's downward spiral, this episode absolutely destroyed me.
It was an incredibly tragic, slow-motion car crash. Becca has been starving herself for days out of anxiety about this ball.
And then, some older commander hands her a cup of spiked punch. She drinks it on an empty stomach, and she gets absolutely wasted, completely sloppy.
And Daisy has to grab her and hide her in the bathroom before the ants catch her.
And in that bathroom stall, Becca just unleashes all of this suppressed agony. She tells Daisy that she prays for God to extinguish the stars.
It is so bleak.
She asks Daisy what running away feels like. And Daisy, trying to tether her to the earth, says, "You can't leave. Agnes loves you."
And Becca looks at her with tears in her eyes and replies, "Not the way I love her."
The confession? I was completely sobbing on my couch, emotionally wrecked.
It is devastating.
Becca is a young girl experiencing deep, sapphic, unrequited love in a totalitarian theocracy where she doesn't even have the vocabulary to understand her own identity.
Let alone express it safely. It is considered a literal sin punishable by death. She is trapped in a body, a society, and a prescribed future that she fundamentally rejects.
And when Becca confesses this, Daisy immediately says, "It's okay to feel this way." And you can see Becca's mind struggling to even process that concept.
Daisy is bringing the empathy and the progressive vocabulary of the outside world, but Becca is still locked in the cage of Gilead's theology. She thinks she is a monster.
And the contrast between Becca's profound existential despair inside that stall and the petty, ridiculous high school drama happening right outside by the sinks, it is giving me absolute whiplash.
Mean Girls Gilead Edition. This was absolute peak reality TV drama playing out in the marble halls of a theocracy.
Let's break down the slap heard around the ballroom.
Oh, we have to. Jehosheba is standing by the sinks, gleefully gossiping about Becca being drunk.
Just being messy and enjoying someone else's downfall. And Shunammite walks right up to her, doesn't say a word, and absolutely slaps the taste out of her mouth.
A full-force, open-handed smack.
It was pure, keep her name out of your mouth energy. I was cheering in my living room. I love a defensive bestie.
It was swift, it was violent, and let's be honest, it was deeply satisfying television. But Shunammite has her own deeply chaotic subplot going on with the tea.
The fermented nettle tea. Okay, Snark Squad. Shunammite is so incredibly desperate to get her period so she can secure her status as a wife. She literally pickled nettles in her wardrobe.
Which a user pointed out smells absolutely rancid, by the way.
But in a moment of supposed generosity, she gives the very last sip of this miracle moonshine tea to sweet, delicate Hulda.
And what is the immediate result? Hulda gets her cycle?
Hulda gets her cycle. The tea works, but it works on the wrong girl. Hulda rings the victory bell. Everyone is celebrating, and Shunammite is practically vibrating with rage.
Furious and intensely jealous.
And Hulda, with this perfectly practiced angelic voice, looks directly at Shunammite and drops the most lethal shade of the entire season.
The read of the century.
Hulda says, "Do you think God made you ineligible for the same reason?"
I gasped. I physically gasped and had to pause the screen. The debate is, was Hulda being genuinely naive, or was she executing a cold-blooded takedown?
Oh, come on. She knew exactly what she was doing. She clocked Shunammite's jealousy, and she used her godly innocence as a weapon to destroy her.
It is giving Real Housewives reunion levels of petty, Lisa Vanderpump level manipulation.
I live for it. But amid all this female infighting, we have to talk about the absolute delusion of romance happening back out on the dance floor.
Agnes and Garth. The tragedy of projected romance.
Commander Weston gets called away to the war room, and Garth, the handsome young guard, cuts in to dance with Agnes.
They're staring into each other's eyes, swaying to the music.
And Agnes thinks to herself, this is what it's supposed to feel like. She is swooning. She thinks she has found her prince.
She's experiencing the flutter of teenage crush. But because Gilead has starved these girls of normal adolescence, She latches onto this basic interaction like a life raft.
And then, on the car ride home, Commander Mackenzie casually mentions that Garth is being promoted to commander.
And you can visibly see the wheels turning in Agnes's head.
She immediately thinks, he's commander, he's eligible, I can marry him and escape these old men.
This is where we have to insert a massive, sobering reality check. It is a tragic, fatal delusion. First of all, Garth doesn't even understand romantic love the way she does.
Okay.
His conception of marriage is purely dynastic and duty-bound. Secondly, his promotion to commander isn't a pathway to a rom-com ending. It makes him a massive target.
Because he is a Mayday spy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This promotion puts him directly in the crosshairs of Gilead's intelligence leaders.
She is literally planning a wedding registry in her head, and he is planning a violent rebellion. They are not on the same page. It breaks my heart.
She is projecting a fairy tale onto a phantom, which is a brilliant exploration of how totalitarianism corrupts the concept of love. And this brings us to segment 1, a massive thematic clash we need to dissect. Power versus performance.
Who actually holds the power in Gilead, and who is just performing control for the cameras?
We see this incredible clash between Aunt Lydia and Commander Judd. Lydia catches wind that these commanders are getting the girls drunk, and she marches right up to Judd and unleashes on him.
The sheer audacity of these men. Pretending to follow God, demanding ultimate purity, but the second they get them in a ballroom, they act like a depraved fraternity. It is vile.
And Lydia, to her credit, calls it out to his face. She holds him accountable.
She does, and Judd's reaction surprised me. He performs total submission, he acts chastened, bows his head, agrees to clean up the mess.
But the very second she turns her back, what does he do? He immediately goes to Aunt Vidala.
Yes. He pulls Vidala into a corner to discuss their vision for the future. He is actively plotting to oust Lydia from her throne.
He knows he can't fight Lydia directly because she holds the blackmail on everyone. So he uses Vidala as a pawn to dismantle Lydia's power from the inside.
It's classic reality TV alliance plotting. He's trying to build a voting bloc to get the OG housewife fired.
But he vastly arrogantly underestimates Aunt Lydia. He relies on the institutional authority granted to him by his gender.
But Lydia has the information. In Gilead, titles are performative, but information is the actual currency. Judd is performing power. Lydia genuinely possesses it.
Precisely. Judd is playing checkers. Lydia is playing 3D chess in the dark.
Which brings us to segment 2, our moral compass check. Who is standing on principle in this world, and who is bending when it benefits them?
We have to put Shunammite on trial here. The prosecution calls Shunammite to the stand. She is a walking contradiction.
She really is. On one hand, she absolutely stands on principle. She defends Becca, she slaps a girl for gossiping, she goes to the mat for her people.
And she gave the tea the holda.
Right. Those are the undeniable actions of a fiercely loyal friend.
But on the other hand, she completely and utterly bends to the oppressive system. She is desperate to get her period. She wants nothing more than to be auctioned off and secure her status as a high-ranking wife.
She isn't trying to tear down the master's house. She's trying to get the master bedroom.
So the Snark Squad debate is this. Is Shu a genuine girl's girl doing her best to protect her friends, or is she playing the ultimate game of survival?
I want to believe she loves her friends. I want to believe there is genuine sisterhood in that horrible school.
I am arguing that Shu is a pure, unadulterated pragmatist. That slap in the bathroom was not just empathy. She slapped Jehosheba because sloppy behavior threatens the reputation of their entire clique.
Oh, she is managing her brand.
Exactly. If Becca goes down for being messy, it lowers their collective market value. Shu is a survivor, and her moral compass points strictly towards self-preservation.
You are so cynical. But looking at how she reacted to Hulda getting her period, you might be right. In Gilead, you cannot afford to be purely altruistic.
Altruism gets you sent to the colonies. It is horizontal hostility. Oppressed groups police each other because attacking the oppressor is too dangerous.
Wow, that is deeply depressing and incredibly accurate. Which brings us to segment 3. If we had authority.
My favorite thought experiment.
Let's play a game. If you and I were suddenly thrust into power, made high-ranking commanders, or given Aunt Lydia's job, what kind of rulers would we be?
Yeah.
Fair,
Yeah.
chaotic, petty?
I know exactly what you would do. You would be a glorious, short-lived disaster.
I would be an absolute disaster. I'm far too emotional. If I had to watch those girls go through those Zoom interviews, I would immediately try to burn the system down.
You wouldn't be able to play the long game.
No, I would be sneaking girls out in laundry carts at midnight. I couldn't hide my disgust. I would roll my eyes during a prayer circle and get sent to clear radioactive waste in the colonies by 2 p.m. on my very first day.
You absolutely would. You'd be crying openly during the father-daughter dance and completely blowing your cover. You lack the necessary sociopathy to survive in middle management of a theocracy.
It is true. What about you?
Me, I would be petty, deeply strategic, and impeccably styled. I would be the little finger of Gilead.
Oh, you would absolutely thrive in the mess.
I would run a shadow network of Marthas and Pearl Girls so vast it would make the CIA look like a book club. I would have the piping hot tea on every single commander in the district.
You would know exactly who is skimming funds and buying black market truffles.
And I would use that blackmail strictly to secure absolute luxurious comfort for myself. Oh, Commander Judd, you want me to keep quiet? I'm going to need unlimited Casa Azul and fresh oysters Rockefeller delivered daily.
You would run the Aunt Lydia school like a Bravo reality show reunion. You'd be sitting there with literal cue cards. Let's roll the tape on your offshore bank accounts, Commander Mackenzie.
We have the receipts, Commander Weston. Roll the footage. Exactly. I would use their own hypocrisy to build a comfortable empire. I would be a benevolent dictator to the girls, but an absolute terror to the men.
It's a sick fantasy, but I deeply respect the hustle. All right, segment 4, Snark Squad Conspiracies. Grab your tinfoil hats, Dabes, because it is time to throw out the slightly unhinged theories about what is really happening beneath the surface.
I live for the conspiracy theories. Let's look at theory 1, the true identity of Garth's dad.
Yes. The narrative explicitly drops this massive crumb, mentioning that Garth's father was a famous commander injured in the Boston moment.
That is a neon sign.
Right. So my immediate emotional reaction was, oh my God, is Garth's Fred Waterford's secret kid? Is he Nick's kid?
And this is where I have to step in and push back analytically, because you are letting your shipper heart override basic, undeniable mathematics.
Stop ruining my fun with logic. It's television.
The math simply isn't mathing, babes. The Boston moment happened roughly 15 years ago. Nick's child with Rose would only be 4 or 5 years old right now. Noah is maybe 5.
But they could age him up for the drama.
Garth is a young adult, old enough to be a guard. He physically cannot be Nick's kid. He cannot be Fred's kid. We need to check the birth certificates.
Okay. The timeline purists on Reddit completely agree with you.
Bro.
But you know showrunners will bend logic for a twist.
Yeah.
But if we have to be logical, what if he is Commander Price's son?
Now that is interesting. Price was a founding architect, and he died in that specific bombing.
Right. It makes total thematic sense why Garth would be angry at the system if his father died building it.
Price is a much more logical, narratively satisfying answer. It gives Garth a direct tie to the founding hypocrisy fueling his May Day rebellion. He is trying to dismantle the house his father built.
Okay, theory 2. The Japanese artillery deal.
Garth secretly tells Daisy that Mackenzie is brokering a massive, off-the-books deal with the Japanese for heavy weapons. The question is why?
Is Mackenzie preparing to overthrow the current Gilead leadership in a coup, or is he arming up against Canada?
What do you think?
I firmly believe Mackenzie is plotting a coup against his own people. He looks at the chaotic, disorganized mess that Judd is running, and he thinks he can do it better.
Really? A coup?
Yes, and I think, deep down, he might secretly want to protect Agnes from the erratic demands of the other commanders, so he's building a private arsenal to break his faction away.
I completely 100% disagree with your read on Mackenzie.
Why? He clearly loves Agnes. He danced with her.
He is a warmonger. Do not let one polite dance blind you to his history. He is utterly ruthless. He doesn't want out of Gilead. He wants to rule it, and he wants to expand it.
You think he's going to attack Canada?
He is brokering advanced weapons because he is planning a massive scorched earth preemptive strike on Canada to crush Mayday once and for all. Promoting Garth isn't a favor. It's placing a loyal pawn on the chessboard for an upcoming international war.
I just want anyone in this bleak world to be a good dad.
You are giving him way too much credit. The men in Gilead only act in their own political self-interest. Every single action is calculated for power.
Wow. Yeah. When you lay it out like that, it is heavy. From the suffocating corsets to the Casa Azul shots to the crushing, inescapable reality of totalitarianism. What an absolute roller coaster today.
It has been a journey, a masterclass in how systems of absolute power corrupt absolutely every facet of humanity.
Snark Squad, we have to wrap up, but thank you so much for hanging out, drinking, and spiraling with us today. We love you.
If you survived our unhinged theories, our reality TV tangents, and our sociological debates, please make sure you share the podcast with a friend. Rate and review us on your favorite app. It truly helps Allison keep the lights on and the premium tequila flowing.
Yes, please do. And as a quick callback to where we began, we started this dressed like Victorian royalty, taking
Mm.
shots, loudly debating reality TV villains over plates of buttery oysters, and we somehow ended up dissecting the geopolitical implications of fermented nettle tea.
Honestly, growth, massive growth. We contain multitude.
We really do. But before we go, Snark Squad, I want you to think about this final provocative thought. We have spent an hour judging these young girls in Gilead. We judged Shunammite for slapping her friend, fighting over scraps of power at a horrific dance.
Right, tearing each other down just to be chosen by men who despise them.
But look at our own world. Look at our own reality TV, our own corporate ladders. How often do we tear each other down, police each other's behavior, and fight for a seat at a table built by people who don't even respect us?
Oh, wow.
Are we really that different from the girls and the plums and the greens, or do we just have better makeup? Think about it. Stay shady, babes.
Stay iconic.
And we will see you next time on the Snark Side.